Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to the first episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat for 2022, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, please drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Lazarus Kaseke, Chartered Accountant and CEO of Eva Financial Solutions. Lazarus, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, always, and yeah, good evening to your audience as well.
Thanks. Let's jump straight into the meat. Tell us your story. Where do you come from, and maybe even outside of work? Who is Lazarus Kaseke? Give us that backstory.
Yeah, that's gonna be a long story, but I want to make it short. Yeah, so you already know I'm Lazarus, CASA. I come from Zim. That's where I was born and bred. I grew up in a small town there in Zim in Harare, and I came to Cape Town around 2008. Um, and yeah, so who am I? I'm passionate about helping people. That's what I do, helping people in businesses. And recently also love talking about investments and encouraging people as well to get into the investment space. Um, Outside of work, I love reading, and I actually have a book here at my desk with me. This is my current read. It's called Principles by Dalio. Um, and yeah, I love soccer. I made a hard fan of soccer, and Arsenal to be specific. Well, not a good team, but that's that's my team. And not a passion, but I'm now also enjoying a little bit of gardening. It's just as a hobby, and that's what I do. Also recently, maybe not so recently, but yeah, quite a few years ago, started taking good care of my body and just exercising. I don't run, I walk, and I do my what you call it, my exercise bike at home, and a little bit of your core exercises and stuff like that. So on a daily basis, you're looking at about 30 to 45 minutes of workout, which is, I think, not bad. Um, and yeah, I think that's my story. Do you want me to tell you where my career started in terms of
Please do.
accounting?
Please go for it.
Okay,
Go for it.
cool. Growing up, I never really expected myself to be an accountant or CA. Um, I would have imagined myself being a private investigator, a secret agent, a lawyer, or something crazy. I don't know, but maybe a lawyer. This was kind of like at the top of the list. Um, but I think around grade 7 in primary school, because my dad used to just buy things that you didn't need because he said, "Well, I'm supporting other businesses." In this in this instance, he buys an accounting book, which I saw, and it just kind of like looked very fascinating to me, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So it was accounting from there, and well, I didn't know much about accounting, but it was just like I want to do accounting. I didn't even know that they're CAs. I just said I want to do accounting. I only started knowing that they're CAs once I was like almost done with my high school. So I'm like, oh, they're CAs. I want to be a CA, you know. But university took me in a different direction. I went on and I did a banking degree instead of an accounting degree. So it became a long process to convert from the banking degree to to the accounting degree. And I remember, and I always tell people this, that I was one of the first people. Maybe I was actually the first person to get the UNISA bridging course, because when I went to them, I said I want to do CTA, and they're like, you don't qualify. I knew that I didn't qualify, but I wanted to take my chances. And I said, well, look, can I maybe speak to the dean so I can, have a conversation with him? I had a conversation with him, and I said, I don't want to go and do the whole accounting degree because I've done all of these modules before. Is there something you can do for me that would fast track me to do CTA? And well, he said, give me a few days. After a few days, he calls me and he says, okay, fine, I'll give you a few modules for you to get into CTS. So that's how I got into back into the accounting. Fast forward a few years later, I had a conversation with another CA, Richard Road. I think you know him, and he said, well, before it was actually before I started my CTA, and he says, well, you know, once you start an accounting, give me a call and I'll give you some kind of training so that you can prepare you into for articles. And I gave him a call when I was started doing my bridging course, and he gave me a head start into the kid, and that's how I got into the audit environment and the in the qualification route.
Okay. So as an Arsenal supporter, you must like to suffer, but then again, as a Manchester United supporter, I feel your pain. So let's move on from there.
Definitely.
So I mean, you are the founder of your business. There's lots of young professionals who are thinking, maybe I should start. Do I start a new business? What made you decide to move from corporate to entrepreneurship? What pushed you over that line, over that edge?
Well, so my dad has been a big influence on my life. He died when I was still young. I think I was about 12 years old, but I remember most of the things that he taught me, or things that he said, or things that I observed him doing. So one of those things was him saying that he doesn't want to work for anyone because he felt that working for someone would be giving someone his blessings, right? So he thought, well, if I do my own things, then I can keep my own blessings and grow my own career and my own life and stuff. So I've always had that at the back of my mind, that I need to start something somewhere along the lines. I don't know what it is that I'll start, but I need to start something so that I work for myself and I develop myself and create my own world in a way. And I've always been worried about what will happen to me if I'm not saying that you cannot create wealth if you're working for someone, you can, but I wondered how that would turn out for me, looking at how much I earned, and I'd always ask myself, what would happen to me if I have, for example, an accident going to work and I lose my hands because I use my hands to work, and what would happen to me? So that always kept ringing in my head, and at some point I decided, well, now I need to start something. But it was not only that, it was also because you know, when people know that you do something, they come to you and they ask for help, and they say, can you help me with this, can you help me with that? And even in high school, I realized that you know, people came to me to solve their problems, right? Whether it was a guy that has received a terrible love letter from his girlfriend, he needs intervention, I'll be that guy to help with you know, that response. Okay, this is how we're going to respond, this is what you're going to do, you know. And so those are some of the factors that led me to say, well, it's now time for me to start my own thing, because all these people that are coming to me, I was helping them for free, and I started to see them, you know, coming more and more, and it's like, okay, let me now monetize this thing, and that's how the business started.
Okay. Okay. No, I mean, it gives us a good. So you were already on track, basically. I looked through your LinkedIn profile, and I noticed, and you, similarly to me, you've changed jobs a few times, but you've also written a few articles about that. But for
Yeah.
those who might have missed it, what are generally your main reasons for deciding to leave?
Yeah, so it's and especially now for the young people, the reason I tweet this, it's for me, it's not a great thing to stay at the same place for a very long time, because in most cases, and depending on where you find yourself in most cases, you get to a ceiling and your growth gets limited. And in some instances, for me, it was because I've done my articles and now I feel like, well, there's nowhere else to go within this training office. I was very passionate about auditing, but I realized that there's no space for me in auditing because, well, no one wants to train me to become a registered auditor. So why should I waste my time? So I left the audit environment and pursued corporate. And then and along the lines, you start to ask yourself questions. And I think just to broaden it and not say who are left and why, but just to broaden it, some of it would be to say, look, this is the vision and strategy that was sold to me at the beginning, but now we kind of like not in the same spirit anymore. The vision and the strategy that is sold to me at the beginning is no longer the same. So I don't feel comfortable being in this place anymore. And some instances it would have been like, well, look, you are a human being at the end of the day, and you need to have your work-life balance sorted out. So if work is taking a lot of my family time and my personal time, and if my clients are also not understanding that I'm a human being that needs family and personal time, then well, maybe there's not a longer place for me to be. And I'm also a person who's big on values, and I have a set of values and principles, and probably that's why I'm also reading this book about principles, because I want to review my values and principles and see where I'm missing some things. So if one is to look at their set of values and say, well, in this organization, I feel like my values and their values are now in conflict, then there's no point in you staying. And that's a big question as well to say, even before you join an organization, ask yourself, what are their values? What do they stand for? And do I align with these values? And if you don't align with those values, don't even bother joining that firm. And if you align and at some point it changes, then it's also time to go on. The other thing for me is I always say I have a radical mind, radical in quotes, because I question things a lot. And I want to see things making sense to me. I want to understand why we're doing things. I want to propose new ways of doing things, or I want to question why we're doing things in a certain way. And so in some instances, it would be like, well, no one is taking that feedback. Why are we doing this thing? We can actually do it better this way. Or have we thought about doing it this way? Or this is what I came across, and I think, we could do this. And if you're in an organization where people don't take that feedback, or they actually criticize you or victimize you when you give that kind of feedback, then for me, it's no longer a place to be. And maybe lastly would be compensation, right? For me, I don't work for money. Money should be an end product of anything that we come across, and I put the relationships at the top of my list. But I think if compensation is not right, and by that I mean market related, and I hate that word because I don't really understand what what the market is in terms of salaries. But yeah, if you think that you're not fairly compensated, then maybe it's time to leave. And by that I mean you look at how much your output is and what the value is that you bring into the firm or to the company that you're working for. And in some instances, believe it or not, employees do talk to each other about their salaries. And if I find out that someone else doing the same kind of work, the same job title, is being paid more than I'm doing, then my values and that the values of the organizations are not aligned. It's no longer a place for me to be, because I value integrity and honesty. And if that is not the case, then I'm not going to be part of that organization.
100%. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
That makes it quite clear. If anybody's got any questions for Lazarus, please add your questions to the comment section now. We will try and answer all the questions towards the end, but if you don't add it now, we might miss it at the end. So please add your questions. I've noticed over the last few months that you are also creating more and more content on LinkedIn. Some people think that content creation is probably not professional or is not professional. But what was your reasoning behind maybe starting, and what's been your experience like?
Yeah, so my reason for starting content creation on LinkedIn was because I want to get engagement. I want to talk to people. Secondly, I help people. So if someone asks me a question, then I know that someone else is probably asking the same question. So you find that some of my content is about, sometimes I actually say, this is a question from someone else, and then I post about it. So if someone else is asking the question, then I know a lot of people are asking the same question, and I want to, sometimes I go and research more about it because maybe it's interesting and I want to know as well what this thing is about. And if it's business, I know that someone else is also struggling with the same thing. I want to go and create that content. The other reason is because I realize that people come to LinkedIn for a specific reason. And they come because they're looking for content, right? And specific content for a specific reason. So for me, my content is mainly just business, individual taxis, and investment. But people could be looking for a whole lot of other things. So I try and answer those questions, or if I meet, because I also read a lot, if I come across something that interests me and I think that it might impact someone, then I want to share about it. Whether or not I get engagement, it doesn't really matter as long as I share, because for me, I want to help people and I want to change. One thing that I'm really passionate about is about changing the mindset of the African child, regardless of race or wherever you come from, because I want us to transition from a place where we see black text as a burden to a place where we see black text as a blessing to other people, as an act of Ubuntu, because you help people because they are, because you are. And that's where I want to get. And I want to get to a point where a lot of us start having these conversations and saying, well, some of our parents didn't really do much in terms of creating a future for us and leaving kind of like a world for their children. And I want to change that narrative, right? And influence as much as I can, that mindset, because I also come from that mindset where, some families believe, you can have as many kids as you can, because as the other kids grow, the other kids will take care of the other kids, and I don't want that because it's not right. And that's the kind of mindset that I wanna change. And that's my content is always around those things. Or it could be that in my many readings, I come across an article or something that I agree with, and I want to share it, or I don't agree with, and I want to share about it and why I don't agree with it. You know,
Okay.
that's my view on content.
And I like the target. You probably answered the question a little bit, but who is your main? Do you have a main target audience for your content, or is it more just generally you're looking at professionals, and why?
It's generally everyone who sees themselves as an investor or a potential investor, right? And some people don't really see that as yet, because they don't understand what an investor is. But it's an investor, someone who wants to change his life, a business person, someone who wants to get into business, or freelancers, etc., and people that are running side hustles. So you see, even in my hashtags, you'll see startup, freelancer, small businesses. Those are the people that I normally target. And you also see the hashtag investment, because I'm also looking at someone who's passionate about investing as well, or wants to get into that world.
No, that's great. So I mean, you're an entrepreneur. What I notice is like every entrepreneur has a plan. Like they haven't. This is not necessarily their final.
Hmm.
They've got a next step in their development, and they've got a next step in their business development. So what's your next step?
Yeah, my next step is I'm looking at a few other potential businesses that I can tap into. And well, I'm not going to give much, but there's probably going to be about 4 businesses that I'm looking at. All of them are just at an idea stage, exploring these ideas and refining the idea, and starting to find like partners to work with. And because that's also a very important thing to consider when you're getting into business, you need partners. And by partners, I mean some people that can do things that you don't do, or things that you're not able to do, and also just someone that holds you accountable for about something or for something. Yes, so the next plan is getting into getting into other businesses, and also growing this business that I currently have. Um, I'm not a person that likes multitasking, so you see that I like growing something and then moving on to the next. I'm probably gonna follow the same route. Focus on this one, grow it to a certain stage, take on the next one, grow it to a certain stage, until I take on all the 4 ideas that I have in mind. If God allows and everything works together, I'll probably go for all 4.
No, it's amazing. I know that there's always an idea brewing somewhere, which I love. I love that part.
Yeah.
This is a question that I like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Um, my younger self, I would have told him to invest more, right, and to start early. and to start with whatever they have. Because I mean, with me, I was one of those people that thought getting a vehicle soon after qualifying or after your exams is, rewarding yourself. But I was
Made
actually
it.
taking a few steps back because I was buying a car on credit. So if I were to advise my younger self, I would have said, well, wait, maybe I would have gotten into property then instead of getting a fast BMW, comfortable. Yeah, it was nice, but it wasn't a great. My mentor says, well, it's not a mistake. You made a right decision given your circumstances at the time. But I feel like I made a mistake there. But it's a mistake that I corrected years later because I eventually sold that car for a good price, and then I bought another asset that is now giving me, this kind of the same amount of money that I was paying for that vehicle, in a way.
And I mean, you can also start getting addicted to assets that generate a return. I'm noticing that now. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like there's any questions from the audience. So it looks like you've answered all of the questions in the discussion. But are there any last words from you? Anything that we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
I would like to maybe encourage the audience to get mentorship. That's something that we really need to focus on in a big way. And when we speak about mentorship, and by the way, there's an article that I wrote as well that's published in the I think Accountants Essay or their online publication about mentorship. And for me, you need to get a mentor in every aspect of your life that you feel you need to develop on. Right, it can be spiritual, it can be physical. So physical, you exercise or whatever. It can be business, it can be school, it can be anything. For me, I got a mentor. First time I got a mentor was when I was in audit, doing my articles, because things were not working out for me, and I needed someone to guide me and get me onto the right path. But I would say, get someone for every aspect of your life that you want to develop. And once you get that someone, make it a relationship that is of a friend to friend relationship or mother to son relationship, but also understand that you are the person being mentored, right? So you don't want your mentor to come to you and say, hey, what are we doing now? Where are we now? You are the person that needs to go to your mentor and say, this is where I am, this is what I'm struggling with, this is where I need help. And it's also important to make sure that you choose the right person for this mentorship. And this can be a person that has excelled in a particular area, or it doesn't have to be a physical person that you meet in person. These days, everything is online. It can be someone you follow on LinkedIn, maybe on Twitter, someone who inspires you, and every post they make inspires you, and every post they make, you're learning from them. Or it can be a book that you read from an author. So I love Douglas Kruger's books, and I call him my mentor, even though I've never really met him, because I love his work and I love his books. Whether he's talking about business, whether he's talking about personal finance, I learn a lot from those things. And so, yeah, I think that's what I could say in terms of mentorship and my advice to your audience.
No, that's great advice. Because I know in most auditing companies, sometimes they give you a mentor, but that mentor might not necessarily be someone that relates to you. I mean, it's great that they give you one, because other companies don't get that, but it's up to you to have the questions, and it's up to you to drive that relationship. It's not the mentor, the mentor's responsibility.
Yeah.
I think
And to ask the stupid questions as well, right?
Exactly.
And that was, I think that was one of the reasons why I chose, I had a mentor, because I wanted someone I would be comfortable to ask what I thought was a stupid question, because I knew then that person wouldn't judge me and say, well, this is a stupid question. By the way, there's nothing such as a stupid question in life. Any question will lead you to learning something.
I think that's a great way to end off. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by latest tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell so that you get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Lazarus, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.